Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So sorry for the delay in posting, but I got a good one for you today. Today, we are going to go over loose leash walking. We're going to use Hans over there, but first we must go over the criteria. What are we working on? How are we going to do it? And how is this going to translate to outside? We're going to start inside. We're going to build a pattern. We'll talk about criteria, and then I'm going to have you guys practice outside moving forward. Why are we starting inside? Well, it's simple. There are way less distractions inside than there are outside. So we build behaviors, we build patterns inside, and then when we're ready, we start generalizing those behaviors or commands outside. Some prerequisites before we start though. If you have not already watched our video on reward placement and leash pressure and the yes marker, I highly encourage you to go watch those videos before you watch this one, because all that stuff is going to come into play when we're building a loose leash walk. Loose leash means loose leash. Our dog can go ahead, our dog can go left, it can sniff, it can do its thing. This is not a formal heel, so don't expect your dog to remain in one single position next to your body. They can do what they please. The only rules for the loose leash walking are keep the leash loose. Very simple. Now, when we're building this loose leash walk, it's very common for the dog to pull, right? When the dog gets to the front of us and we start to feel tension on their collar or prong collar or whatever we're using, this is where we're going to return them back to us. So the dog goes ahead, that's fine, but when tension comes on the leash, we're going to return them to our side. We're going to do turns and returns. Now, before we begin, we will need a cue. In our case, we're going to say, let's go. In your case, it doesn't matter. You can say peanut butter, you can say jelly, just pick a cue and stick with it and be consistent with using that in the loose leash walk. And here's how we begin this loose leash walk. I'm gonna walk you through it just like this, and then we'll go ahead and practice with Hans. The biggest thing that we're gonna work on initially is returning to our side. So I have my dog, we're on leash, and we're walking. Of course, some of your dogs are going to pull immediately, some may not. When the dog starts pulling on the leash, we're going to add in some leash taps. Tap, 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 and then I'm gonna add in my verbal cue. Ours is, again, let's go. So dog gets ahead of us, tension is on the leash all of a sudden, I'm going to tap, tap, tap and say, let's go. At that point, I'm going to guide my dog back to my left side. You may have to repeat this process many, many, many times, but that's okay. Dogs don't learn with one rep. Dogs learn with many reps and lots of practice and lots of consistency. Generally speaking, the dog is going to start pulling again at some point. So when they are pulling again, I'm going to do the same thing. Tap, tap, tap. I'm going to guide them back to my left side and then reward them. Yes, that's what I want. Now, at some point, the dog is going to start understanding this, and this is a good segue into talk about corrections. Now, we don't correct our dogs unless they actually know what they're supposed to be doing, unless we've built that pattern, because it's not fair if we're just correcting our dog and pulling on their neck for nothing. So here's how a correction would happen when we're doing loose leash walking. We've practiced, the dog knows what to do, they decide they're going to pull. I'm going to use our no marker, I'm going to give them a leash pop, and then I'm going to tap, 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 let's go. Return them back to our side. Over time, what you're gonna see happen is that the dog is going to understand. As soon as they feel tension on their neck, that's a cue or an indication that they're about to be returned to the side. So many of your dogs are just going to do that automatically, or to avoid being returned to their side, they're just going to keep the leash loose. Next up, let's talk about left turns and right turns. We ideally want our dog to follow us without tension if we're turning left or turning right. And we're gonna use that same idea with leash taps to communicate, hey, we're about to change direction. So whether it's us turning left or it's us turning right, we're moving ahead, we turn right, but before we turn right, tap, 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 we're gonna turn right, we're gonna say, let's go. Dog gets to our side or in close proximation to us, we're going to mark with our yes marker and then deliver a reward. Usually I stop and I deliver the reward in place. All right, here we go. Here's our first rep. We're gonna start walking, tap, tap, guide Hans back to the left side, and yes. So I tapped, I said, let's go. I guided him back to the left side, and then I rewarded him. Tap, tap, guide him back. Once he's where we want him, I mark with yes, and then deliver the reward. Now, it's pretty common, and I see this sometimes, where you tap, tap, and then you're going to guide your dog back to, say, your left side, and they just sit there. This is where our leash pressure comes in handy, so make sure you've watched that video. If you run into this, just hold that pressure, give them some verbal encouragement without repeating your cue, and then get them back to your left side, and then restart. Now it's time to go outside and see what it's like to practice this in real life around distractions. In the end of that last segment, you saw me rewarding Hans when he didn't pull, so that's something you guys can do. Dog goes ahead, tension is applied. If he comes back or out of tension, that is an opportunity for you to reward him as well, a great habit or a great pattern to build. All right, so we made it outside. Good thing we started practicing inside because it's gonna be way easier now. You're gonna see we're doing the same thing. Tap, tap, let's go. Return Hans to the side, and then you guys can reward when your dog gets there. Here it is again. Tap, tap, let's go, and return him to the side. He's doing really, really good. And here we go with our right turns. Same fundamentals apply. I turn right, but before I turn right, I tap, tap, turn right, let's go, and feed. Here it is again, tap, tap, let's go, feed when he gets to us. Now let's talk about left turns. A little bit different with the left turns you're seeing right here, that I apply pressure backwards, not double tap. So pressure backwards, then I turn left, and when he remains by my side, I'm rewarding him. Now, if you guys are doing this on your right side, we would do this the opposite way. You'd pull back, you'd turn right, if you know what I'm saying. So here's a couple more reps. We're gonna turn left, but before we do, I apply a little bit of pressure backwards. You could do the taps like you saw me doing, so really you have two options at this point. And there you have it, guys. As you can see towards the end, Hans started to get the idea. We have practiced this a lot already. When you practice, it may not look like this. You have two options when you're doing the left turn, as we talked about. What we're looking for is the dog to begin to understand that when tension is applied, they're either going to slow down automatically or they're just going to return to my side, just like Hans was doing a couple of those reps. So make sure you're rewarding them when they're coming back to you, and if tension is applied and they come out of tension, that's a great opportunity to reward. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to see more content. We appreciate your support so far, and we'll see you in the next. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you like our content. It helps us more than you know, and we'll see you in the next video.